Yes, hi folks, this is Tim, aka Faceless Fat Loss. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. I wanted to continue along and point out the nature of food as an addiction. This is a very important topic that is not taken seriously enough. You'll read in my ebook about the grain issue, and in my free videos as well, I cover the grain issue as an addiction and the need to wean. Many of us need to wean ourselves off of grains for a period of 2 to 3 months. Now, we also know how much of an addiction food can become. We don't really need the scientific evidence of this. The proof of it is all over the place. But what I wanted to do is show you guys a little bit about how dopamine works and relate it back to foods, especially sugar. Sugar is a huge one, and we already know how sugar impacts us when it comes to insulin and gaining fat on our bodies. Now, if food is powerful enough to trigger hormonal responses, such as the insulin response, causing us problems in that area, doesn't it make sense that it could have addictive qualities? What you're going to see here is I'm going to compare food, and sugar especially, to heroin and cocaine because it is comparable, and I'm going to back it up with some great scientific study from Yale University to put some credit behind this whole thought and theory here. Dopamine is commonly associated with the pleasure system of the brain, providing feelings of enjoyment and reinforcement to motivate a person to proactively perform certain activities. You can see where this is going. Naturally rewarding experiences such as food and sex. Now, this is a Wikipedia.org article. As you all know, Wikipedia isn't the end-all source of information. It just happens to be a handy source to for things like this, to get across what you might be trying to show someone. Don't ever take it as the sole source of fully documented info. It certainly is not. There's some really lousy information on Wikipedia here and there. But this accomplishes what I'm trying to get to, and it is accurate, so I'm using it here. Heroin and cocaine. Now, when it comes to dopamine, the mechanisms here and the actions are slightly different between how heroin and cocaine impact dopamine activity, but the effects are still the same: the mood elevation and the euphoria. Now, what do we get when we're eating that delicious dessert? You all know that rush that you can get from eating certain kinds of foods. Can't that rush be somewhat compared to the rush that perhaps a drug addict would get? That's why I'm so big on fasting and so big on eliminating foods completely, especially the grain issue, refined grain issue especially, for a period of 2 to 3 months to get beyond what you could compare to a drug addiction, except that it's food. Researchers tie genes' lower reward response regarding the dopamine to weight gain. This is a study right out of Yale University. Okay, October 16, 2008. You could probably do a search for it and you'll find it. All the major news networks carried it. They didn't talk about it too much, but the point is it made it out there. And I won't really read this to you too much, other than to say it sums up that well, let me get to something here. There's a couple certain. Okay, the blunted. Oh, don't do that. Some kind of pop up there. The blunted response to tasty food was particularly pronounced in women with the variant, and they're talking about a variant in the dopamine response. In addition, women with the variant were much more likely to gain weight after a year. The idea being, if I can finish the article here. Yes, prior work had shown that obese people tend to have fewer dopamine receptors in the brain, and suggested that they overeat to compensate for this reward deficit. Remember the reward aspect that I pointed out earlier. The current findings are consistent with the theory that the blunted response to food represents a vulnerability factor for obesity, but it does not conclusively rule out the possibility that the finding reflects an adaptation to overeating. Small caution, this person cautioned. So in other words, people are adapting to overeating, okay, but there is also a blunted dopamine response. They know this is happening due to the fewer number of dopamine receptors. If this is happening, then of course people are eating more. People are eating more to compensate, to get that, quote, high, if you will. This is why it is so important to, in my opinion, eliminate foods. And trust me on this is my personal experience. I assure you of this, and plenty of other people can testify to this. You will lose your taste for these foods. You will. It just takes time. Now, a doctor that I respect a great deal, Dr. Joseph Mercola, he has a gargantuan practice, and he has documented that 2 to 3 months worth of grain elimination is what it takes to break the, quote, addiction. Okay, he has an 85% success rate with this. Documented 85% success rate, and as I said, he has a huge practice. There is something to this, and he's just talking about grains, especially the refined varieties. So it applies, in my opinion, to the sugar component as well because of the dopamine aspect. We know that sugar triggers off dopamine receptors. So this particular response study here, in the Yale University, did refer to a stronger response with milkshakes, which is why I'm referring to the sugar specifically. I hope this is encouraging you folks to consider elimination and just treat it as if it is a drug, certain foods such as the refined sugars and refined flours, for a period of 2 to 3 months to break that habit. This isn't, as I put in my ebook, it's a form of intervention. If you can treat it like that, you will notice results, just as I have and many others have. Thank you so much for being a paid subscriber. I hope this information is useful and helpful. Love, happiness, health, and peace.